instruction book is about that thick, and after about page 10, you're just like, you know what, I don't care anymore. You throw it in your closet, and then you realize that it's still in your closet like 5 years later, like half assembled, that kind of thing. So this is kind of an informative speech on how to write instructions and what makes a good set of instructions and what makes a bad set of instructions, as well as the types of instructions. Okay, so the first question is, why do we need instructions? What's the purpose? Well, there's a couple main points. One is safety. The most important is probably safety. Is you have a company design a product, you need to explain to people how to safely use it. And with that is avoiding lawsuits. You also need to keep your customers happy. If you design something and people don't know how to use it, they're not going to be very happy with you, and they're probably never going to buy anything from you again. This also goes with eliminating and keeping your customer service not clogged up. And the last thing is, sometimes if you don't have instructions, you can figure it out by process of elimination, but it usually takes a lot of time. Okay, this is the first bad example of instructions. Now this, I think, was a chair, how to put a chair system together. And it's probably a poor translation. They probably wrote it in Chinese and they can Google Translate. And while the diagrams are okay, the text is worthless. I mean, after fixing, it needs to make height adjustment. I don't know what that word is. Follow the following indicated drawing. Only needs remove top. I mean, it's just painful to read. I mean, you're just going to throw that away or use it for a fire starter paper or something. Because, yikes. So this is important when you have something that's designed in a foreign country. You have to make sure that Google Translate doesn't always. It's an amazing thing, but it doesn't always work. This is just kind of funny. I mean, it's really, using chopsticks is not like you're really going to hurt yourself doing that if you do it wrong. But hold the first chopstick in original position, move the second one up and down. Now you can pick up anything. Anything. Okay, well, can I pick up, a 20-pound brick with my chopsticks? I mean. And this is, of course, just funny with this example, but let's say you're building a hoist, or lifting straps, or a crane. This can get very deadly and dangerous really quick. You have to be specific. How much weight? What can I pick up with it? And avoid general terms. Okay, bad example number 3. Now this one, so we have little tiny diagrams that don't really tell us much. They are labeled, in steps, but the steps are horrible. I mean, there's no real there's no diagram. I mean, I like a good step 1 diagram, step 2 diagram. It's a lot easier to see. This is, I think, for a cell phone, how to set up a cell phone system, but not a very good set of instructions. Pretty painful to read. And you have that overwhelming factor where sometimes instructions aren't that poorly written, but when you look at it, there's that 10 seconds where you just freak out in your head. Just freak out because it's not really good in step 1, step 2. And that's a big thing to avoid too. Okay, sets of good instructions. Legos have awesome instructions. There's not even any words on them. They are just diagram, just a diagram. One very important thing though is that they are color coded. All your parts are a different color, so you can tell instantly what part you need. It's also laid out in very easy to understand steps. Another great use for this, and what makes wordless instructions so great, is they can ship these all over the world. You don't have to create a set of French instructions and a set of German instructions and a set of English instructions, and then worry about finding someone to translate it well. Anybody in the world can figure that out, and that's what makes it very useful as a company. Is it should always be first. If you can explain it in pictures, I would always do that first. And the color really makes it, if it was in black and white, it would make it a lot more difficult to figure out. Okay.
Okay, so now that we're done looking at examples, I'm going to talk about the different types of steps that can go into instructions. There's 6 types of steps, and most documents have them mixed together, but there's one type that really can't be mixed with anything. So the first one's fixed order, and this is when it's usually numbered on the instruction list. You have to do everything the way it's presented, and you can't take shortcuts. So an example would be changing the oil in your car. Like you have to drain the oil before you put the new oil in. And then the second one is variable order. This one is almost the same as it, except it doesn't matter the order you do it in. So they usually put bullet points instead of numbers. And then these could be like troubleshooting things where they just give you a list to check and then you can fix it once you find out what's wrong. Third, we have alternate instructions. These are usually used when various conditions exist, so there's more than one way to put it together or something. And usually these are bullet point steps, and then in the middle of the step you'll put the word or, and then you'll have the other option after that. And then we have nested. These steps are way too complex to be on their own, so you put sub-steps indented in with another sequence, like A, B, C, or 1, 2, 3, and you'll have the explanatory stuff in those. And then really similar to that is our supplementary. These aren't really describing, or it's describing it instead of putting extra information on there. These are like the pictures you see where it describes what it looks like before and after the step. And then in some instructions you can find like why you should be doing this step and why it's important in these ones. And then the last one we have is step lists. These don't have any steps at all really written out, but they're more tactile, like learning how to swim and stuff like that. So there's no straightforward directing instructional style, but it's kind of catered to everybody's needs.
Okay, so we have varieties of learners and how they interpret instructions. So there's 3 main categories that we consider learners. So we have visual, kinesthetic, and audio. So each person, depending on what type of instructions are given, they can learn an easier way. The point is, when you're writing instructions, you want to make them more convenient to the reader, and knowing your audience is definitely important when writing instructions, because you want the reader to be able to understand it so they can eventually apply the instructions once they're read. So first we have visual learners. So this category makes up about 65% of the general population, and they're able to learn through examples, pictures, and instructional videos. So most instructions, they'll have a set of words followed by a diagram or picture that correlates with the words. So that way it's easier for them to read it and then look at the diagram and they'll be, okay, so that's what I'm supposed to do once they read the actual words. So I don't know if you guys have ever read just straight instructions without a diagram, but for me it can get confusing after a while reading it over and over again, and you don't know if you miss a step. But once a diagram is applied to the instructions, it can be a lot more convenient for them. Also, instructional videos are very important. Of course, being able to learn something, you can go on YouTube. Easy to find an instructional video anywhere, or in a workplace. I know that there's safety videos or sexual harassment videos that have to be shown in case people don't know how to follow the guidelines in a workplace. But those can be easy for visual learners. Second, we have kinesthetic learners. Now this actually is surprising, but it's only 5% of people are kinesthetic learners, so they're able to learn instructions through actually doing them. And an example could be learning how to dance, or what else? Yeah, learning how to dance or ride a bike. I'm pretty sure most people don't read a book or read instructions on how to dance or how to ride a bike, especially when, if you're a little kid, your parents don't give you a set of instructions and give you a bike and go, here, read these and go practice outside. Usually it's something that has to be learned through actually doing it, and it's a process. But a more practical use could be CPR. People take CPR classes, and learn instructions that way, because there's different variables that have to be applied to those instructions as well. So, yeah, there's different variables that have to be applied to those instructions as well. Certain things, like muscle memory, because you don't want to hurt somebody by pressing on the chest too hard. It's easier for you to learn through actually practicing on a dummy than just, reading it. And I think that way you can avoid certain, accidents. You don't want to hurt somebody in case a person needs CPR in the future and you accidentally hurt them just because you didn't take the class and you just read instructions online and thought you could do it that way. Lastly, we have audio learners. Now this is more straightforward. People can give instructions through word of mouth, and you can take in information that way. It can be applied through, of course, school, having a lecture, or sitting through a lecture, having a teacher explain to you certain information, certain instructions on how to do something. Of course, it's way more straightforward than visual or kinesthetic. And then also, you can read instructions and then repeat to yourself out loud. That also will be able to help you intake the information that's given. And then, that also makes up 30% of the population.
All right. There we go. All right, so where to go from here? So we've hit about every major bullet on instructions, but we need to know what to take from this. So as we were saying right away, bad versus good instructions. What we can see is liability. If you make bad instructions, it could hurt your company. If you're working for a company and you make bad instructions, it could cost you $10 million if you're making it up. But going over to Lego and you're getting the color coded, that can save you money. You can ship it all over the world and you never have to change the language or translate anything. Bad versus good instructions, you can really see a difference in the workplace. But what else we need to take from this is all our different types of instructions and how people learn in the workplace. So ordered, variable, complex, simple, and supplementary. So just as we were saying earlier, how people can learn different ways, different types of instructions help for different types of learners. So like a supplementary, people who see their instructions can sometimes take them in easier and quicker, so it can be more efficient in the workplace. Same with ordered. Sometimes you have to do things in certain steps on a certain day. Going to the last, being these type of learners and taking in these instructions, as a business, it really helps to know who's working for you and how they learn. Is it true for the statistics? Do most people learn through audio or through visual? Yeah. Do most people learn through visual? Does a lot of practice maybe help them go through things, or is it? Does your company maybe base a lot of learning based on audio? And so instructions can help with that. So, do we have any questions?
You were talking about how the different types of instructions and things like that, and how they combine most types.
Yeah.
But I don't remember what you said about there was one type that could be combined. Which one was that?
The last one, so the stepless one, doesn't really combine with anything because you learn it on your own. All the rest of them are usually on a hard copy document. So.
You may have kind of said this, but I just want to. Would you say visual design, not just visual, but visual design, the way instructions look, is important?
Yes.
Yes, well, depending on, instructions can be more appealing to somebody when they're reading them, and I think that visual design can definitely help out with that, depending on what diagrams you have and how it correlates with the instructions as well.
It also kind of eliminates, like I was talking about that initial freak out when you open the box and you go, nope, I'm not doing this, and you toss it aside. And I was going to put an example in here. There was one of them, a Barbie like how to set up a Barbie dollhouse, and it was horrible. Because it wasn't, once you got a magnifying glass out, it wasn't that hard. I mean, it was just simply explaining like how to unfold a table. But just to look at it was just painful to look at.
Would you go back to one of your bad ones? Can you go back a little bit? I know that's not.
I might have to just skip.
That's an idea.
Go back up.
Not that one, not that one, that one. Can most of you see how unappealing these instructions look? How just looking at them, you think, this is gonna be hard to follow.
Yeah.
Visual design is so important in tech things. So, yeah, I'm done.
Oh, okay.
Oh, if people don't read the instructions like you were talking about, like what is kind of the point of making them if people don't have to read them anyway, though?
Some of it's legal liability.
Yeah, so
You
so,
know,
so the
I'm gonna
question,
stop you- yeah, I'm gonna stop you for a second. Go ahead, Doc.
so the question is, why make rules when it's, or why make instructions when it's self-explanatory?
Yeah.
Liability.
Yeah.
So, if you don't put any instructions and someone does the worst possible thing you could do with it, even if it's not made for, like, put a burrito in a tailpipe of a muffler and it says not to do that or something, and then, you know, sometimes you get sued and you lose. McDonald's, they had, what was it, a hot coffee drop in their lap or something, you sued them and ungodly amounts just from, you know, if they have to put instructions, be careful.
Yeah.
What?
And she went to the hospital. That was a bad injury.
But she was also driving with the coffee in between her legs.
There's a
Yeah.
documentary about that. It's really interesting.
Really?
Everyone makes fun of her, but like she had a pretty bad injury from that coffee.
Okay, so finish up this question and I'll go back to what I told you.
It's,
Alright.
yeah, and the,
No, you did.
okay, the other reason is to keep with the appealing thing is to get people to read it in the beginning.
Mhm.
I mean, that's what like you were saying with the appealing thing, is you want it to appeal to people. Now, some things that you buy, I mean, like a toenail clipper or something, you know how to use. I mean, but
Yeah.
you still put it in there so somebody
Still
doesn't clip
instructions,
their
yeah.
finger and then sue you. Who said that? Never underestimate stupidity. I think it was Einstein that said that.
So finish the question.
Did that answer your
One more
question?
thing.
Oh, did that? Okay.
Perfect, thank you. April, I was gonna ask you, does that documentary take a whose side is that
Well,
documentary?
it's on the woman's side, 100%. It's on Netflix.
What is it
What's it
called?
called?
I don't remember. But
Coffee and lap
We're
girl.
watching that.
if you just Google coffee McDonald's lady,